What is a bond? Presented by Opus Asset Management. Bonds, or fixed income, are common investments. However, to many investors, bonds still remain a mystery and are believed to be complex. Here we explore the basics of bonds and how it could benefit your investment portfolio. A bond is simply a loan contract given to a company or government by investors. By issuing a bond, a company or government borrows money from investors, who in return are paid regular interest throughout the period of the bond and return the principal at maturity. Issuers such as governments or companies issue bonds to fund new projects or ongoing expenses. Governments issue bonds for fiscal spending such as infrastructure projects and public policy expenditure. Whereas companies issue bonds for project financing or working capital reasons. Consider this example. The city of Kuala Lumpur wants to build a university and decides to issue bonds to raise money. Each bond is a loan for 1,000 ringgit, which the city promises to pay back in 10 years. To make this bond more attractive to investors, the federal government of Kuala Lumpur agrees to pay an annual interest rate of 5%, which in the bond world is also known as a coupon rate. An investor buys the bond at face value for 1,000 ringgit. Now let's fast forward. Each year, the city of Kuala Lumpur pays the investor 5% per annum for an entire length of the bond, which is 10 years. Once the bond reaches maturity, the bond is redeemed and the city returns the investor the initial principal investment amount of 1,000 ringgit. From this example, we can see that this bond was a good deal for both the city and our investor. The city of Kuala Lumpur got the capital needed to build the new university, while the investor received regular interest payments and the return of the original investment. Because bonds offer regular scheduled interest payments and return of investment principal amount on maturity date, bonds are often viewed as a more predictable and stable form of investing. Besides that, investors invest in bonds to preserve their capital, while also generating additional income. Bonds are often viewed as a less risky alternative to stocks and are sometimes used to diversify a portfolio. Of course, like any investment, bonds are not without risk. The two main risks to consider when investing in bonds are the credit risk and interest rate risk. The credit risk is the risk that bond investors face on the possibility of the issuer defaulting. Typically, bonds with higher credit risk also come with higher coupon rates. The degree of credit risk depends mostly on the financial stability of the issuer. Another risk to consider is often called interest rate risk. This is the risk that when interest rate goes up, the bonds that you own will be worth less if sold before the maturity date. After all, when interest rates rise, more investors will allocate their money into the newly issued bonds with higher interest rates. If you wanted to sell a low interest rate bond to take advantage of these new rates, you'd have to sell your bond at a discount to make it a worthwhile purchase for other investors. Keep in mind that this discussion showed you only one simplified way that investors might use bonds, and only a few of the risks to consider.